Tyler Holloway pushed open the front door just past midnight, expecting the usual glow of the hallway lamp and the soft hum of Grace moving around the house. Instead, darkness swallowed him whole. The Denver air was cold that night, but the silence inside the house was colder. His footsteps echoed hollow, wrong across the hardwood floor. He dropped his leather overnight bag, the same one he carried on every business trip, though tonight the scent of Brielle's perfume still clung to it like guilt he hadn't bothered to wash off. He loosened his tie, already rehearsing the excuses he'd toss at Grace in the morning. A delayed flight, last-minute meetings, lies polished enough to sound like truth. But then he saw it. One small piece of paper on the dining table. Bright, crooked, childlike. A crayon drawing. Tyler frowned and stepped closer. Ollie's handwriting, uneven, colorful, stretched across the page in thick strokes. "Mommy has a new hero." For a moment, Tyler couldn't breathe. His pulse thudded in his temples. New hero? What did that even mean? He scanned the room, no sign of toys, no lunchbox, no Grace's coat on the hook. Even the framed sonogram picture she used to keep near the fruit bowl was gone. A chill crawled up his spine. He rushed down the hall, pushing open Ollie's room. Empty. Drawers half open. Blankets missing. The faint scent of his son's lavender shampoo lingered in the air, mocking him. Grace's closet? Half empty. Her shoes? Gone. The realization hit him harder than Brielle's lipstick ever could. Grace had left. And worse, she hadn't left alone. Tyler sank into the nearest chair, the crayon note trembling in his hand. His mind spun with questions, none of which he had the courage to face. If Grace had found out, if someone else had stepped in, if she had finally seen through him, then a sound broke the silence. A soft creak from the back door. Tyler froze, because someone else was inside the house, and they weren't supposed to be there. Tyler stood completely still, the crayon note still trembling between his fingers. The faint creak from the back door echoed again, softer this time, as if the house itself breathed out a warning. He forced himself to move toward the kitchen, each step heavier than the last. His phone flashlight cut across the countertops, revealing something he hadn't noticed before. Grace's favorite ceramic mug shattered in the sink, as if dropped mid-panic. The house didn't just feel empty, it felt abandoned. He whispered her name. Grace? The sound died before it reached the hallway. There had always been noise in this home, Ollie humming to himself while stacking blocks in perfect rows, Grace's soft steps as she moved through her morning routine, the gentle rhythm of a life built from small, steady sacrifices. Now the silence pressed against Tyler's ears until they rang. He moved toward their bedroom, flicking on the light. Half the closet was bare. Grace's soft sweaters, her maternity coats, even the faded t-shirts she wore on tired nights gone. Only his shirts remained, hanging like ghosts of the man he pretended to be. He noticed an empty space on the nightstand where she kept her prenatal vitamins, and the framed picture from their anniversary trip to Monterey, missing. A new fear slipped under his skin. Had she taken the car? Had someone picked her up? He checked the garage. Her Toyota was gone. Only his luxury sedan sat under the fluorescent light, polished and useless. Tyler swallowed hard. He wasn't used to being the one left behind. He wasn't used to not having control. Brielle had always told him Grace was too soft to leave, too dependent, too forgiving. But the empty spaces in this house said otherwise. He walked back into the living room, staring at the crayon note again. Mommy has a new hero. A new hero implied a new man. The idea of Grace in someone else's arms cut sharper than any truth he'd tried to outrun. Yet when he looked closer at the drawing, his stomach twisted. The stick figure labeled hero wasn't shaped like a man at all. It was taller, broader, but the head was sketched with curls, Ollie never used for Tyler. Someone had been around his family? Someone Ollie trusted enough to draw. A sudden gust slammed the back door fully open, banging against the wall. Tyler spun around and saw a shadow move across the yard, slow and deliberate. Someone had been watching the house long before tonight. Tyler stood frozen in the doorway, the wind whipping at the curtains as the back door rattled against the wall. But the shadow in the yard was gone, leaving only the bitter echo of his own paranoia. He closed the door, locked it, and leaned his forehead against the wood. It wasn't the first time the darkness felt like it was closing in on him. It had started months earlier. Long before the crayon note, long before Grace ever suspected anything. He remembered the first night he let the lie take root. A tech conference in San Francisco. A rooftop lounge glowing under the warm shimmer of Edison bulbs. People laughing too loudly, drinking too much, celebrating deals they hadn't earned. And Brielle Hart walking toward him in a black silk dress that shimmered like oil under the city lights. She wasn't beautiful in a gentle way like Grace. She was beautiful like danger, sharp angles, red lips, confidence that fed on weakness. She had leaned close enough for her perfume to settle into his skin. "You shouldn't be upstairs alone," she'd said. "A man like you deserves to be seen." He should have walked away. He should have thought of Grace, of Ollie, of the baby she carried. But he didn't. He let himself be pulled into the rhythm of that new world. Exclusive bars, private lounges, luxury hotel suites overlooking the bay. It felt glamorous, intoxicating, like stepping into a life that whispered he was destined for more than the quiet Denver home waiting for him. He told himself Grace wouldn't understand the pressure he was under. The long hours, the demands, the expectations. But truthfully, he'd stopped letting her understand. He'd shut her out before she even had a chance to reach him. One night, after too many drinks and too many bad choices, he found himself standing in a window suite at the Pacific Crest Tower. Brielle sat on the marble counter, swinging her heels, smiling like she owned him. "Your wife doesn't love a man like you," she whispered. "Not the real you. But I do." He believed her. Or he wanted to. Because believing her meant he didn't have to face the guilt clawing at him. Now, standing in his empty house miles away from that rooftop, Tyler felt something tighten in his chest. The luxury, the attention, the temptation, all of it suddenly felt cheap, meaningless. Because Grace had walked away, and she'd taken their children with her. The hallway creaked behind him. He turned slowly. This time, the shadow wasn't outside the house, it was standing right behind him. Tyler spun around so fast his vision blurred, but the hallway behind him was empty, just shadows stretching long across the floor, shaped by the moonlight slipping through the blinds. His lungs tightened. Maybe it was guilt haunting him. Maybe it was fear. Maybe both. He needed answers. And the only place answers ever lived was in the past. He walked toward Grace's study, a small room where she used to store lesson plans, Ollie's therapy charts, and stacks of parenting books she read late at night while waiting for him to come home. He flicked on the lamp. The room was stripped bare. Every binder gone. Every notebook gone. Every trace of Grace's world erased. Except one thing. An old envelope wedged under a fallen stack of printer paper. He pulled it free. Inside was a crumpled receipt. A receipt he had forgotten existed. A receipt that proved the moment Grace first realized he was slipping away. It was from the Pacific Crest Tower in San Francisco, dated 6 months ago, a bar charge for 2 premium cocktails and a late-night food order. Grace must have found it tucked in the pocket of his suit jacket. He remembered the night clearly. The rooftop. Brielle leaning too close. His wedding ring feeling heavier than usual. Back then, when Grace had asked why he smelled like citrus perfume, he'd laughed it off. "That's from the hotel lobby," he'd said. She'd smiled, but her eyes held something fragile, something breaking. Another memory clawed its way back. Grace standing in their kitchen one morning, quietly washing dishes. Her face pale, her body tired from pregnancy, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're gone a lot lately. Is everything okay?" He had kissed her forehead without looking at her. "Just work, babe. You worry too much." He didn't see her fingers tighten on the counter. He didn't see her hide the tremble in her breathing. He didn't see her heart splintering piece by piece. Now, holding the receipt, Tyler finally understood. Grace had known. Not the full truth, no. But she'd felt the distance. She'd sensed the lies. She'd lived with them, letting the weight press down on her until she couldn't breathe. And he had never once stopped to ask why she looked so tired. Why she winced when climbing the stairs. Why she cried in the shower late at night, believing he couldn't hear her. He believed her softness was weakness. But now he realized it had been strength all along. A sudden vibration broke the silence. Tyler looked down. His phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Grace." And there was an address attached. Grace had always carried more than people noticed. Tyler used to admire that about her, how she could juggle Ollie's therapy appointments, her demanding job, and a household that always seemed to survive on hope alone. But somewhere along the way, admiration turned into expectation, and expectation turned into neglect. While he drifted into late-night lounges and rooftop bars, Grace was the one holding everything together. He remembered coming home one evening, months ago, long before the crayon note, long before the house went silent. Grace was sitting on the couch with her feet propped up, one hand on her lower back. Her pregnancy had begun to strain her body, sharp aches, swelling feet, constant exhaustion. Ollie sat beside her, lining up his crayons in perfect color order, humming softly to himself. "Hey," Tyler had said, breezing past her, answering work emails on his phone. She smiled at him with worn-out eyes. "You're home early." But he wasn't early. She was just lonely. That night, she tried to tell him she needed help. "I can't keep up with everything," she admitted quietly. "The baby, Ollie's appointments, I'm overwhelmed." Tyler barely looked up. "You're strong, Grace. You've got this." What he really meant was, "Handle it. I'm busy." He didn't notice her wince when she stood. He didn't notice the tears she wiped quickly when Ollie wasn't looking. He didn't notice anything except the glow of his phone and the rush of his next flight out. Now, standing in the empty house, the memory felt like a punch to the chest. He walked into Ollie's room again, scanning the space more carefully. Therapy charts gone, sensory toys gone, the weighted blanket a gift Grace saved months for gone. Every detail Grace managed meticulously had vanished overnight. Tyler felt something unfamiliar rise in him. Regret. Raw, unfiltered regret. He used to claim he worked so hard for the family, but now the family was gone, and all he had left were excuses that sounded pathetic even to him. He sat on the edge of Ollie's stripped bed, rubbing his forehead, trying to piece together what could have driven Grace to finally leave. She had endured so much exhaustion, loneliness, fear, but she had never walked away. So what changed? As he leaned forward, something small slid out from under the pillow. A folded sheet of paper. A drawing. Ollie had sketched Grace holding her belly, and a tall man standing beside her, hand on her shoulder. Above the drawing was a single word written in uneven crayon letters. Safe. Tyler's heart stopped. Because the man in the drawing was not him. Tyler sat frozen, Ollie's drawing limp in his shaking hands. Safe. A word he had never realized Grace didn't feel with him anymore. A word he had taken for granted. As he traced the crayon outlines, another memory, sharp and merciless, cut through the fog. It was the night everything finally broke. Grace had been unusually quiet during dinner, pushing food around her plate while Ollie hummed beside her. She winced every few minutes, hand drifting to her belly, but when Tyler asked if she was okay, she nodded. "I'm fine," she whispered. She was never fine, but she never complained. Later that night, while Tyler was packing for yet another work trip, Grace stood in the doorway, one hand bracing the swollen curve of her stomach. "Tyler, can you stay this week?" she asked gently. "I have a prenatal scan, and Ollie's therapist wants both of us there." He didn't even pause. "Babe, you know I can't. The team needs me in San Francisco." Her lips parted, hurt flickering across her eyes, but she swallowed it. She always swallowed it. Then her phone buzzed. A notification flashed across the lock screen. A message from an unknown number. "If you ever need help, I'm here." She turned the phone over quickly, but Tyler had seen it. "What was that?" he demanded. Grace hesitated. "It's nothing, just someone from the support center." But jealousy, the kind he never admitted he was capable of, flared in him. "You giving out signals now? While pregnant with my kid?" Grace recoiled as if struck. "I'm trying to survive, Tyler." He scoffed, rolling his suitcase toward the door. "Yeah? Well, maybe try harder." The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. But he didn't apologize. Not then. Not ever. That night, after he left for the airport, Grace curled into herself on the couch, tears soaking through her shirt. Her body hurt, her heart hurt, her world hurt. And when Ollie crawled beside her, patting her arm and whispering, "Mommy sad," she knew something inside her had reached its limit. Around 2 a.m., a sharp cramp jolted her awake. Panic surged. She tried calling Tyler twice, but both calls went unanswered. He was likely at a bar, Brielle's voice murmuring in his ear. So, Grace made a decision. She grabbed a duffel bag, packed essentials for herself and Ollie, and stepped out into the cold Denver air. Her steps were unsteady. Her heart was breaking. but it was the first time she had chosen herself. Hours later, she left the crayon note behind, not for revenge, but because Ollie insisted on putting it on the table. "For Daddy," he said, "so he know Mommy's safe." Tyler closed his eyes, gut twisting. Safe. A word Grace could only find far away from him. Then his phone buzzed again. A second message. "You're not the only one looking for her." Grace didn't drive far that night. Her hands were shaking too badly, and the sharp waves of pain in her abdomen made every mile feel dangerous. The cold Denver air pressed against the car windows as she pulled into the only place that felt remotely safe, an overnight family support center where she'd once volunteered during Ollie's early diagnosis. The parking lot was dim, almost empty. Grace sat still for a moment, forehead against the steering wheel, breathing through the ache in her stomach. Ollie slept in the back seat, hugging his weighted blanket to his chest. She brushed a trembling hand over her belly. "Please," she whispered to the baby. "Just hold on." Right then, the center's front door opened, spilling warm light onto the sidewalk. A tall man stepped out, wearing a navy coat and rubbing his hands together against the cold. His breath fogged into the air as he started toward his car, then froze when he recognized the battered Toyota and the exhausted woman leaning against it. "Grace?" he called gently. Her head lifted. It was him, Noah Sterling. They'd met months earlier, briefly, during a parent workshop he sponsored. He remembered names easily, faces even better, and he'd recognized in Grace the quiet, weary strength of someone carrying more than she ever admitted. He jogged over. "What happened? Are you all right?" Grace tried to answer, but her voice cracked. The pain, the fear, the loneliness, everything poured into the silence between them. Noah took one look at Ollie sleeping in the back seat and another at her pale face. "Come inside," he said softly. "Both of you. You shouldn't be out here alone." She hesitated. Trust felt dangerous, but the contractions were getting sharper, and Ollie stirred uncomfortably in his sleep. Noah opened the passenger door for her. "I've got you," he murmured. "Let me help." Inside the center, he found a quiet room, helped her sit, brought water, blankets, even dimmed the lights so Ollie wouldn't get overstimulated. For the first time in months, Grace felt the crushing weight on her chest ease just enough for her to breathe. Noah crouched beside her, his voice steady. "Grace, who did this to you?" She didn't answer. She couldn't, but he didn't push. Instead, he checked her pulse gently, nodding with a calmness she desperately needed. "You're not alone tonight," he assured her. "I promise." And for the first time, Grace believed him. Back in the empty house miles away, Tyler stared at his phone. The unknown number had sent a follow-up message. This one with a photo. A photo of Grace, exhausted, pregnant, leaning on another man's shoulder, and the message read, "She's safer with me. Thanks for watching." Inside the quiet support center, the harshness of the world outside seemed to soften. Grace sat on the padded bench, one hand over her belly, the other gently stroking Ollie's hair as he slept across her lap. The room smelled faintly of lavender diffusers and warm laundry comfort she didn't know she'd been starving for. Noah returned with 2 steaming cups of chamomile tea. "You should drink something," he said softly. "You're shaking." Grace took the cup, her fingers brushing his. Her hands were ice cold. "Thank you. I didn't know where else to go." "You came to the right place," he answered. And strangely, she believed him. The support center lights were low, casting soft shadows on the walls. Ollie stirred, blinking sleepily. His eyes, big, brown, innocent, landed on Noah first. "Hi," Noah whispered, kneeling. "You all right, buddy?" Ollie didn't speak. He simply reached into his small backpack, pulled out a handful of crayons, and placed them in Noah's palm with startling gentleness. Grace inhaled sharply. Ollie didn't do that with strangers. "He likes you," she said, her voice trembling. "He never opens up this fast." Noah smiled softly. "Well, I'm honored." Ollie then grabbed a sheet of paper from the art bin beside him and began drawing with fierce focus. Curved lines. A tall figure. A smaller figure. Bright yellow scribbles around them like a glowing frame. Grace watched, confused, until Ollie held it up proudly. A drawing of Grace. And Noah? Above them, in uneven letters, he had written, "Hero." Grace felt her throat close. It wasn't like the first drawing. This one wasn't about safety. This one was about belonging. She covered her mouth, trying not to cry. I don't know what to say. You don't have to. Noah's voice softened. Just breathe. You deserve space to breathe. And to stay. No one had said that to her in years. For a moment, Grace allowed herself to feel it, the warmth of someone genuinely caring, the relief of not holding everything together alone, the terrifying sweetness of the possibility that maybe, just maybe, life didn't end tonight. But peace never lasts long for a woman running from pain. Because just then, the center's landline rang sharp, loud, urgent. The receptionist answered, voice confused. Grace? It's for you. Someone keeps calling your name. Grace's blood ran cold. No one knew she was here. No one except. She stood slowly, heart pounding, as the receptionist held out the phone. Grace, he said, he's your husband. Tyler's voice cut through the receiver, ragged and breathless. Don't hang up. I know where you are. And he wasn't alone. Grace held the phone to her ear, but the moment she heard Tyler's voice, ragged, breathless, almost panicked, her hand trembled. She hadn't heard him sound like that since their early years, before lies had carved distance between them. Grace, don't hang up. I'm coming to you, he said, voice sharp with urgency. She stiffened. Coming to her? How? No one knew where she'd gone. No, she whispered, trying to steady her breath. Tyler, please, just leave us alone for tonight. But on the other end of the line, Tyler's breathing grew louder. You left me a note about a new hero, a man in my house, a man around my wife and son. Who is he? Grace's chest tightened. This wasn't worry. This was possession, wearing panic as a mask. Noah, standing a few steps behind her, watched her carefully. He didn't interrupt. He didn't pressure. But the steady calm in his posture made her feel grounded. Tyler, she said, voice trembling, I left because you weren't there. Not for me, not for Ollie. You don't get to be angry that someone else. Someone else what? Tyler snapped. Someone else stepped in? Someone else touched what's mine? Grace flinched. Behind her, Noah's jaw tensed, but he stayed silent. Ollie peeked up from his drawing, sensing tension rise like static in the room. Grace lowered her voice. Tyler, I'm pregnant. I'm exhausted. I needed help, that's all. But Tyler wasn't listening. He was spiraling. Tell me who he is, he demanded. The man in the picture, the man holding you, the man Ollie calls a hero. I think. Grace staggered back, breath caught in her throat. How do you know about the drawing? There was a long pause, too long. Then Tyler inhaled slowly. I'm not the only one who's been watching you. A chill spread under Grace's skin. Her eyes flicked to Noah. Someone else? Watching her? Noah stepped closer, gently placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Grace, give me the phone. She hesitated, but then she handed it over. Noah brought it to his ear. His voice dropped into something colder than steel. Grace and Ollie are safe. You won't talk to her like that again. Tyler growled. Who the hell are you? The man who showed up when you didn't, Noah replied, calm but firm. Grace's breath hitched. Tyler's voice broke into a frantic shout. You think you can take my family? You think you can replace me? Noah's grip on the phone tightened. No one had to replace you, Tyler. You left your place empty. Silence. Then the click of a call abruptly ending. Grace's knees buckled, fear clawing its way up her throat. Noah steadied her. He'll come, she whispered. He sounded different. Like someone I don't know. Noah nodded grimly. He's not coming alone. Someone is feeding him information. Grace's eyes widened. Because someone outside the center was watching them through the window right now. Brielle Hart didn't bother knocking. She pushed her way into Tyler's loft in downtown Denver like she owned it, heels clicking against the polished concrete floor, perfume sweet enough to choke the air. Tyler didn't even look up. His hands were shaking too badly. He had replayed the phone call with Grace a dozen times, her voice weak and strained. The man beside her, Noah Sterling, speaking like he had a right to protect her. A right Tyler believed belonged to him alone. Tyler, Brielle said, tossing her designer coat onto the couch, you look like hell. He didn't respond. Instead, he opened the message again. The photo of Grace leaning on Noah. The caption, she's safer with me. Brielle rolled her eyes. It's a support center. Relax. She probably just needed attention. Pregnant women get dramatic. Tyler's jaw clenched. Grace is not dramatic. She's boring. Brielle cut in sharply. Come on, Tyler. You said it yourself. She holds you back. Always tired, always overwhelmed, always worrying about that kid. Ollie, his son. Her disrespect hit him like a slap. But Brielle wasn't done. She snatched his phone from his hand and scoffed at the picture. This guy? Seriously? That's who she ran to? Some charity case CEO who probably uses his foundation to polish his halo? Tyler stood abruptly. Give me the phone. But Brielle stepped back, raising a brow. No, not until you start thinking straight. You're acting like she's worth chasing. He froze. Something about those words, not worth chasing, ignited a rage he didn't know he still had. Grace is my wife, he growled. And I'm the woman you risked your job for, Brielle snapped. Don't forget who keeps your secrets. He stared at her, really stared. And for the first time, he saw the version of Brielle everyone else had warned him about: ambition, wrapped in beauty, manipulation, tucked behind a smile, loyalty that only lasted as long as he was useful. Did you tell someone where she was? He demanded suddenly. Brielle blinked. What? No, why would I? Because someone sent me a picture they shouldn't have had. Someone knew where she went. Her silence lasted half a second too long. Tyler stepped closer. You gave her location to someone. Brielle's facade cracked. I didn't know they'd actually go there. I told someone who wanted information. Someone who said they were trying to help. Tyler's blood ran cold. Who? Before she could answer, a loud thud rattled the door. They both jumped. Another thud. Harder. Someone was outside, trying to break in. Brielle's face drained of color. Oh my God, Tyler, I think they followed me. To Jader. Tyler stared at the door as the frame shook under the impact. And for the first time tonight, he realized Grace might not be the only one in danger. While chaos unfolded in Tyler's loft, Grace sat in the quiet support center, unaware of the storm gathering behind her. A nurse had checked her vitals. She wasn't in active labor, but she needed rest, hydration, and less stress. Stress, of course, was the one thing her life refused to stop giving her. Noah returned with a warm blanket draped over his arm. You should lie down for a bit, he suggested gently. Your blood pressure's high. Grace hesitated. She wasn't used to being cared for. Every instinct told her to push through, to manage alone, to survive quietly the way she always had. But the ache in her back and the tightness in her belly left her with little strength to argue. She eased onto the couch. Noah placed the blanket over her and sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. For a moment, neither spoke. Grace broke the silence first. I wasn't planning to stay here tonight. I just didn't know where else to go. You don't need to explain, Noah said. Sometimes the body knows when it's time to stop running. His words reached a place in her she thought had shut down months ago. She exhaled shakily. If I had gone into labor out there, I don't know what would have happened. B7. You're safe now. Ollie's safe. That's what matters. Ollie, curled up on a beanbag across from them, hummed softly while tracing circles on his weighted blanket. Seeing him calm brought a pang of relief and a pang of grief. He'd witnessed too much, felt too much. Noah leaned forward. Grace, I need to ask you something important. She tensed, instinctively wary. I'm reopening a large educational initiative through my foundation, he continued gently. A program supporting children with special needs. I want you to help design the curriculum. Grace blinked, confused. Me? Noah, I'm barely holding myself together. That's exactly why you can do this. You understand these kids. You understand the parents. You've lived this experience with a kind of courage most people never develop. Her eyes filled. No one had said something like that to her, in years, maybe ever. It comes with a full salary, flexible hours, and medical support, Noah added carefully. You won't have to fight alone anymore. Grace covered her mouth, overwhelmed. He wasn't rescuing her. He wasn't pitying her. He was offering her a way to stand again, a way to rebuild the pieces life had shattered. Before she could answer, the center lights flickered. Once, twice. Then a loud buzzing noise cut through the hallway. The receptionist rushed in, breathless. Grace, Noah, you need to see this. Someone just called demanding access to the building. Noah rose instantly. Who? The receptionist swallowed hard. He said his name is Tyler Holloway, and he's not alone. Grace's stomach dropped, because through the window, Headlights were pulling into the parking lot, 2 cars, not one. The support center grew tense the moment the headlights swept across the windows. Grace could feel her pulse thudding in her ears, every instinct screaming to protect Ollie. Her stomach tightened, not from contractions this time, but from fear. Fear she'd been swallowing for months. Noah placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "You're not facing this alone, not anymore." Grace nodded, but her throat was thick with emotion. She had spent years believing she had to carry every burden silently: her pregnancy, her son's needs, her failing marriage, her exhaustion. Tonight was the first time someone stood beside her without expecting anything in return. "Grace," Noah said softly, "I know this is overwhelming, but what you're feeling right now, this strength, it's yours. It was always yours." She almost cried at that. Most people saw her as fragile, but Noah? He saw her as someone who had simply been fighting alone too long. She took a shaky breath. "I need to stay calm. For Ollie. For the baby. That's exactly why you're stronger than you think. And Avro." His words steadied her more than anything else could have. Trying to focus, Grace reached into her tote bag and pulled out a small, dog-eared book she'd bought weeks ago, Women Who Run with the Wolves. She had carried it around, but never managed to read past the first chapter. Life had always pulled her in too many directions. Tonight, she opened it again. Just one page. Just one quiet reminder that survival wasn't failure, it was power. Noah watched her, his expression soft but unreadable. "That book changed my sister's life," he murmured. She said it reminded her she wasn't built to be silent. Grace swallowed hard. "Maybe that's what I need right now." She rested a hand on her belly. "For both of us." But the moment of calm didn't last. The building's security monitor flickered to life, showing Tyler stepping out of one car, face tight with fury, and beside him, a second figure emerging from another vehicle. A woman. Towel. Cold. Confident. Belle Hart. Grace's breath caught. "What is she doing here?" "She's the last person I expected to show up," Noah muttered. The receptionist rushed back. "He's demanding to be let inside. Says it's urgent." Grace's chest tightened. "No, he can't come near Ollie. He'll scare him." Without hesitation, Noah positioned himself between Grace and the door. "He won't touch either of you. Thank you for watching. If you know, though." Through the glass, Tyler suddenly pounded on the outer entrance, shouting something they couldn't hear, but his expression was unmistakable. He wasn't here to apologize. He wasn't here to reconcile. He was here to reclaim control. And beside him, Belle smiled, not kindly, but with a sickening thrill. Because the second car wasn't hers. It belonged to someone Grace never expected to see again. Tyler Holloway paced in frantic circles inside his loft, hours before he drove to the support center. He'd always believed he was the gravitational force in everyone's life, Grace's, Ollie's, even Belle's. But tonight, as panic gnawed at him, he faced a truth that scorched his pride. They had all moved on without him. Grace's voice over the phone had been shaky but strong. Noah's tone had been protective, calm, firm, the opposite of Tyler's unraveling desperation. And Belle? He had finally seen her for who she truly was, temporary, self-serving, and cruelly uninterested in the wreckage she helped create. Tyler stopped pacing and looked around the loft, the cold, expensive furniture, the untouched liquor cart, the sterile minimalism he once thought symbolized success. Now, it looked like a monument to every bad decision he had ever made. He poured himself a drink with hands that shook too violently. The amber liquid sloshed over the rim onto the counter. He didn't even notice. His mind was stuck replaying the photo he'd been sent. Grace leaning into Noah, exhaustion etched across her face, but steadiness in the man holding her up. A steadiness Tyler had never managed to give her. He slammed the glass down. "No," he growled, "she doesn't get to replace me." But even as he said it, the words tasted hollow. Because deep down, dark, uncomfortable, undeniable, he knew Grace hadn't replaced him. He had abandoned his place. Piece by piece, lie by lie, choice by selfish choice. When Belle arrived earlier, mocking Grace's exhaustion, ridiculing Ollie's needs, dismissing his growing panic, something shifted inside him. Something snapped. For the first time, he saw how far he had fallen. He wasn't fighting for love. He was fighting for ownership, something he never truly had. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. A news alert. He glanced at the screen and froze. Noah Sterling, CEO of the Sterling Foundation, to receive major federal grant for National Special Needs Initiative. A photo accompanied the headline, Noah, smiling beside a senator, looking powerful, respected, untouchable. Tyler's knees nearly buckled. This wasn't just some man Grace met at a support center. Noah Sterling was a national figure, wealthy, admired, protected. Tyler felt the floor tilt beneath him. If Grace was with someone like that, then the world Tyler had built, the lies, the ego, the control, was already collapsing. Suddenly, another notification pinged. A voicemail. From an unknown number, he pressed play. A distorted voice whispered, "She won't choose you. She already chose him. Meet us at the center. It ends tonight." Tyler's blood ran cold. Someone was pulling him into a trap, and he was too desperate to walk away. He grabbed his keys, rage and fear battling in his chest, and stormed out the door, not realizing someone else stepped out of the shadows and followed him. The security alarms at the support center beeped softly as Noah checked the reinforced doors. Grace sat with Ollie, pulled tightly into her arms, rocking him gently while trying to steady her own breathing. Her baby kicked beneath her ribs, sharp, insistent, as if sensing the tension swirling in the room. "Grace," Noah said, returning from the entrance. "We need to move to the back hall. It's safer there." She nodded, even though her legs trembled when she stood. Ollie clung to her shirt, his face buried against her hip. "Mommy," loud, he whispered, distressed. "I know, sweetheart. We're going somewhere quieter." Her voice was gentle, but inside, fear churned like a storm tide. As they walked toward the staff hallway, Grace couldn't stop replaying a single image in her mind. Tyler pounding on the door, jaw clenched, eyes wild, not the man she married, not the man she once trusted, but someone unrecognizable. Once, she had loved him so deeply it hurt. Now the hurt was all that remained. When they reached the back corridor, Noah knelt to Ollie's eye level. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "Want to hold my flashlight? You can help us walk." About mine action. Ollie's little fingers wrapped instantly around the light. He nodded, shoulders relaxing just a little. Grace watched the interaction, her throat tightening. Noah didn't see Ollie's challenges, he saw Ollie. Fully. Kindly. Without judgment. She had forgotten what that kind of gentleness felt like. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A text. From Tyler. "I'm here, we need to talk, before he takes you away from me." Grace's breath stalled. "Takes you?" What did Tyler think Noah was? Noah noticed her expression. What did he say? Grace showed him the message, guilt pooling in her chest, even though she didn't owe Tyler anything anymore. "He's spiraling," Noah murmured. "It's not about you, it's about him losing control." Grace pressed a hand to her belly, wincing as another tight cramp traveled through her. "I can't let him near Ollie. Or the baby. I can't, not anymore." Wada the 7. And Wada's. The confession cracked something inside her, a truth she had held on to far too long. "You don't have to," Noah said softly. "Not tonight, not ever again." But before Grace could respond, the hallway lights flickered violently. A heavy metallic clang echoed from the front of the building. Then a voice erupted through the intercom speaker, distorted, furious. "Grace, open the door." Ollie whimpered and hid behind her legs. Noah rushed to shield them both, eyes narrowing. But then another voice joined Tyler's. A woman's voice. Cold, sharp, smirking even through the static. "Come on out, sweetheart. We brought someone who wants to see you." Grace froze, because stepping into view on the security monitor was a familiar face she never expected to see again. Tyler's older brother Daniel, fresh out of prison. Grace's knees weakened when she saw Daniel Holloway on the security monitor. Older, hardened, eyes sharp with a darkness she remembered all too well. Tyler's brother had always been trouble, but prison had carved something even colder into him. Something predatory. Noah instinctively pulled Grace a step behind him. "That man shouldn't be anywhere near you," he said, voice grave. Grace's throat tightened. "Tyler told me he cut ties with Daniel years ago." Noah shook his head slowly. He didn't cut ties, he just hid them. Through the speakers, Daniel's voice slithered into the hallway. "Gracie, remember me? We never got to finish our little conversation before I went away." Her stomach twisted violently, not from pregnancy, but from the memory he was deliberately trying to unearth. Daniel had cornered her once when she was newly pregnant with Ollie. Tyler wasn't home. Daniel had been high, furious about money Tyler owed him. He'd grabbed her arm so hard she bruised for a week. Tyler later told her Daniel was just stressed. Grace had believed him because she wanted to. Now she knew better. Noah turned to her, eyes searching. "Grace, there's more you haven't told me." She swallowed hard. "I didn't want to believe Tyler could ever involve him again, especially after Ollie was born. But he did," Noah said quietly. "Tonight proves it." Then, from outside, Tyler's voice cracked through the intercom, angry, frantic, unraveling. "Grace, open the door. You're making this harder than it needs to be." He sounded unhinged. Not a husband, not a father. A man who had lost control and couldn't stand it. Brielle's voice followed, sharp with glee. "She's not coming out for you, Tyler. Let Danny talk to her. She's scared of him. Fear makes people obey." Grace's breath hitched. Daniel stepped closer to the camera, grinning. "Come out, Gracie, before your pretty new boyfriend gets hurt." Noah stiffened at the threat. "Don't react," Grace whispered. "That's what they want." But fear was rising fast in her chest. The walls felt closer. The lights too bright. Her baby kicked sharply, as if urging her to run. Ollie clutched her leg, wide-eyed. "Mommy's scared," he whispered. "No," she forced herself to say, kneeling to stroke his cheek. "Mommy is strong." The words shook, but they were true. For the first time, she felt it. Noah placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're calling the police. Now." Before he could dial, the receptionist's shaky voice echoed through the hallway. "The police aren't coming. Someone canceled the call. Someone pretending to be you, Grace." Grace's blood went cold, because that meant Tyler or Daniel had access to information they shouldn't. And the security monitor proved it. Daniel held up a stolen ID card. It was Noah's. Noah stared at the stolen ID in Daniel's hand, his jaw tightening. "That card disappeared months ago," he muttered. "I thought I misplaced it." Grace shook her head slowly. "No, someone stole it. Someone who wanted access. Someone who knew Noah. Someone who knew Grace. Someone who wanted her vulnerable. Tyler." Her heart clenched. Not because she still loved him, but because she finally understood how deep his recklessness went. He hadn't just betrayed their marriage, he had exposed her and their children to a man capable of real violence. Through the static of the intercom, Daniel's voice hissed. "A name like Sterling opens a lot of doors. You'd be surprised what a little charm and a borrowed badge can get you." Grace grabbed the wall for balance as her stomach tightened again. She wasn't in labor, but stress pushed her body too close to the edge. Noah caught her. "Sit, breathe, I'm right here." His voice soothed her, even as danger crept closer. On the monitor, Tyler stepped forward, grabbing Daniel's arm. "Stop scaring her. I didn't bring you here for this." Daniel shoved him back with a sneer. "You brought me because you can't handle your own mess. You needed leverage." Grace covered her mouth. Tyler had asked Daniel to help him? The same man who once bruised her arm and called it a joke? Noah's expression darkened. He used his own brother as a weapon. "That's desperation, Grace, not love." The words landed with devastating clarity. Outside, Brielle paced behind them, looking annoyed that the situation wasn't unfolding quickly enough. "Danny, just break the lock already." "We don't have all night," Tyler snapped. "Shut up, Brielle. You've done enough." "Oh, please," she shot back. "You dragged me into this disaster. You owe me." Grace flinched. Owe her? For what? Before she could question it, a loud crash echoed through the speakers. Daniel had picked up a metal trash can and slammed it against the center's exterior door. Ollie whimpered, covering his ears. Grace instinctively held him close, shielding his head with her hands. "Noah," she whispered, panic rising. "We can't let them get inside." "We won't," Noah promised. "I'll barricade the hall. Stay with Ollie." He sprinted toward the supply closet, grabbing anything heavy he could carry. But before he returned, the receptionist rushed toward them, pale as paper. "Grace, there's something on the back camera feed. You need to see this." Grace approached the screen, breathing sharp and shallow. Daniel and Brielle weren't the only ones outside. A third figure stepped from the shadows tall, wearing a hooded jacket, face hidden. Grace's stomach dropped. Because when the figure lifted their head, she recognized the eyes instantly. Eyes filled with regret, an obsession. Her former sister-in-law, the woman who once told Grace she'd never be enough for the Holloway family. Danny Lee Holloway. returned after years of silence, and she whispered one chilling line into the camera. "Tonight, Gracie, we finish what we started." End quote. The hallway lights flickered as thunder rolled outside, shaking the thin windows of the support center. Grace felt her pulse hammer in her throat. 3 people, Tyler, Daniel, and now Daniele, stood outside like wolves circling a wounded deer. Every instinct in her body screamed to run, protect Ollie, shield the baby inside her. But there was nowhere left to run. Ollie pressed himself into her side, trembling. "Mommy, scary," he whispered. She knelt, cupping his face gently. "I'm right here. You're safe. I promise." Her voice wavered, but she forced herself to mean every word. She had spent years stitching herself together for this child. She would not let her fear unravel in front of him now. Noah rushed back into the hallway, arms full of chairs, a small filing cabinet dragging behind him. "We can block the corridor. They won't reach this wing." Grace watched him, something tightening deep inside her chest, something like gratitude wrapped in disbelief. "Why are you doing all this?" she whispered. He looked at her, voice steady. "Because you and Ollie deserve someone who shows up, and because no one should face this kind of terror alone." Grace's breath caught. No one had ever said that to her. Not Tyler, not his family, certainly not anyone who claimed to care. Her knees buckled slightly, a sharp ache cutting across her abdomen. "Grace, what is it?" Noah asked. "Just stress," she whispered, bracing against the wall. I'm okay." Has very dazes. But she wasn't. The pressure, the tightening, the fear coiling through her body, Noah noticed instantly. "You're contracting," he said quietly. "Your body's reacting to the fear. We need to keep you calm." He guided her to the bench and crouched in front of her, his hands steady and reassuring on her knees. "Grace," he said softly, "look at me. Not the door, not the cameras. Me." Her eyes met his. "You are not alone," he repeated. "You're safe with me." And a tear slipped down her cheek, not from fear, but from the shock of being comforted for the first time in years. She leaned forward, her forehead resting briefly against his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't respond with words. He didn't need to. But the moment cracked like glass when a violent bang echoed from the front entrance. The receptionist screamed, ducking behind the desk. Noah shot to his feet, eyes hardening. "They're breaking through. Stay behind me. Daughter 7. Talk 7. Daughter 7 daughters." Grace held Ollie tight, her heart thundering. The security feed flickered Daniele stepping forward with a crowbar, smirking at the camera. Then she mouthed 2 chilling words. "We're in." The crowbar smashed into the glass with a piercing crack, sending a spiderweb of fractures across the entry window. Grace jerked backward, clutching Ollie so tightly he could barely breathe. Her heart pounded so violently she feared the baby might feel every tremor. Noah positioned himself between her and the hallway, protective and unwavering. "They're not getting past me," he said, voice steady but edged with steel. Grace had never seen him look like that, calm, controlled, dangerous, in a way that came not from violence, but from determination. The kind of strength born from protecting, not harming. Another blow from the crowbar. The glass buckled. The receptionist cried out, ducking behind the counter. Ollie screamed, covering his ears, rocking back and forth in panic. Grace held him, whispering shakily, "It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here. Mommy's here." But inside, she wasn't sure of anything. Her body clenched again, tight, painful, rhythmic. A contraction. Not from stress this time. Something deeper. Something her body could no longer ignore. "No, not now," she whispered, gripping the bench as another wave hit. Noah spun around. "Grace? What's happening?" Her breath shook. I think the baby's coming." Fear flashed across his face, but only for a second. Then purpose took over. "Okay, listen to me," he said firmly. "We're getting you to the back room. There's medical equipment there. You can't stay here." Another smash. This time, the window cracked open at the corner. Daniele's voice seeped through the shattering glass. "Ready or not, Gracie, here we come." Grace stumbled to her feet, one arm around her belly, the other clutching Ollie's hand. Pain pulsed through her, forcing her to stop halfway down the corridor. "I can't," she gasped. "Yes, you can," Noah said, catching her before she collapsed. "Lean on me. I won't let you fall." The lights flickered above them. The wind howled through the cracked entryway. And then, the glass finally burst inward. Daniel's silhouette appeared in the doorway, followed by Daniel's shadow and Brielle's long frame. Tyler hovered behind them, torn between fury and regret, clearly realizing too late what he had invited into his world. Noah pulled Grace into the last room on the right, locking the heavy door behind them. He dragged a metal table in front of it, breath sharp, eyes darting to the medical cot. "Grace," he said urgently, "you're in early labor. We need help." Grace gripped the edge of the cot, trembling. "I'm scared." He held her shoulders firmly. "You're not alone. I'm right here. Just keep breathing." But then, a loud metallic screech cut through the room. Daniel was prying the lock open from the other side, and his voice filtered through the crack in the door. "When we get in, he's the first to go." Daniel's crowbar scraped against the metal lock again, sending sparks of panic through Grace's chest. She clung to the cot, one hand gripping her belly as another contraction shuddered through her. Sweat beaded at her hairline. Her breathing turned ragged. "Grace, look at me," Noah said, kneeling in front of her. His voice was calm despite the chaos shaking the door behind him. "You're going to get through this. The baby's okay. You're okay." She shook her head violently. "No, I can't do this. Not here, not now." He took her hands, steadying them with his own. "You already survived more than most people ever will. You can do this." His words anchored her. For a moment, she let herself believe them. But the metallic groaning of the door yanked her back into terror. Daniel's voice oozed through the cracks. "What's wrong, Gracie? Having a rough night? Don't worry, we'll help." Noah stood, fury shadowing his expression. "She's unstable," he muttered. "She shouldn't be near anyone." Grace couldn't help it, her voice cracked. "Why is she even here? What did I ever do to her?" Noah hesitated just a moment. "You didn't do anything, but Tyler's family, they don't like losing control. You walking away? That was enough." Her heart clenched. Walking away, one act of courage had unleashed a nightmare. Another contraction hit. Grace doubled over, teeth clenched. "Noah, it hurts." He immediately supported her shoulders, helping her lower onto the cot. "Breathe with me. Slow, deep. You're not delivering yet, but we don't have much time." Grace tried to inhale, but fear kept strangling her breath. "What if they get in? What if they take Ollie? What if—" "No." Noah's voice cut through her panic. "I won't let them touch you, or your children." Her children. Plural. He said it like they were already part of his world, his responsibility, his heart. Her eyes filled. Before she could speak, a sharp crash came from the hallway, louder than before. Tyler's voice erupted. "Stop. Leave her alone. This wasn't the plan." Daniel snarled back. "Plans change, little brother." And then Ollie's scream pierced the air. Grace shot upright, pain forgotten. "No, Ollie." Noah spun toward the supply closet where Ollie had been hiding. Just as the door next to it burst open, Daniel had found another entrance. He stepped inside, crowbar in one hand, wild grin twisting his mouth. Grace's scream tore from her throat. Noah shoved her behind him, spreading his arms wide. Daniel lifted the crowbar, and someone else grabbed his wrist from behind. A hand yanked Daniel backwards so hard the crowbar clattered to the floor. He spun, furious, but froze when he saw who had grabbed him. Tyler. His face was pale, shaken, finally seeing the nightmare he had unleashed. "Stop, Daniel," he choked out. "I didn't bring you here for this. I just wanted to talk to her." Daniel sneered. "You wanted control? Same thing." He swung at Tyler, but Noah lunged forward, tackling Daniel to the ground. The two struggled, crashing into shelves and sending supplies scattering. Brielle screamed and bolted for the exit, abandoning everyone without a second thought. Then sirens. Red and blue lights strobed across the windows. The police. Someone had called them anyway. Daniel fought like a wild animal, but Noah held him until officers burst into the room and tore him away. Daniel tried to flee but was immediately restrained. Brielle was caught crying beside her car, claiming she didn't know what was happening, a lie no one believed. When the chaos cleared, 2 officers approached Grace. "Ma'am, you're safe now. We're taking all 3 into custody." She nodded weakly, tears slipping down her cheeks, not from fear anymore, but relief so deep it shook her. Ollie ran into her arms, burying his face in her shoulder. "Mommy's safe," he whispered. "Yes, baby," she breathed, holding him tight. Mommy's safe. She looked up and saw Tyler standing apart from the officers, shoulders slumped, face hollow. Grace, he said, voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I didn't know they'd dem. She raised a trembling hand. No, Tyler. You brought this into our lives long before tonight, and I won't let you hurt us again. His eyes filled with regret, but it was too late. The officers stepped in, escorting him away not for violence, but for aiding a fugitive and obstructing emergency services. Grace didn't watch him go. Some endings don't need witnessing. Noah approached slowly, his shirt torn, lip bruised, but his eyes soft. You okay? He asked. Grace nodded, tears spilling again. You saved us. He shook his head gently. No, you saved yourself. You chose a different life tonight. She looked at him, really looked, and felt something settle in her chest. Not romance. Not dependence. Something steadier. Hope. Weeks later, after a safe delivery of a healthy baby girl, Grace stood on a balcony overlooking Denver's skyline. Ollie played with his sister's tiny fingers while Noah stood nearby, giving her space but still present, reliable, warm, constant. She finally understood. A hero wasn't someone who swooped in. A hero was someone who stayed. Someone who protected without possession, loved without expectation. Grace had found hers. And this time, she wasn't afraid to choose her own ending. So, our story comes to a close. And if you're still here with us right now, my dear friends, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or those moments in life when you had to stand back up even though everything felt impossible. You know, the Stoics often said, the obstacle is the way. And watching Grace fight through fear, betrayal, and loneliness only to rise stronger, it reminds us that sometimes life shapes us through challenges we never asked for. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Grace didn't just survive her suffering, she transformed because of it. And maybe that's the real message here. Your worth isn't defined by who hurts you, but by who you choose to become afterward. Healing is not loud. It's quiet, steady, a choice made every morning. If this story brought you courage, comfort, or even just a moment of reflection, please like the video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to our channel. We still have many stories to walk through together, and I'd be honored if you stayed with us on this journey.